Does Mike McCarthy have a scantily dressed assistant? Or maybe an assistant that doesn't say a word and simply does the voila thing? Does he wear a Wizards hat? Does he have, what are those things that magicians have with the, does he have a wand? The answer is no. No, Doug, he does not. Well, then he's not a magician. And of course, it would take a magician to make this team any good against a reputable NFL team because they lost Zach Martin last night. He, of course, is their starting right guard, arguably the best or one of the 2 or 3 best guards in the National Football League. They already lost their bookend tackles and their center retired before the season began. And last week, they lost their quarterback for the rest of the season. Outside of that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the show? Right? How was the show? Now, I hear the criticism that Jane Slater has relayed, where you have players saying they're not good at, the coaches aren't good at their job, we're not prepared, they don't teach. I hear you. I could also point out that the players themselves aren't good at their job and aren't learning. But regardless, honestly, regardless of the outcome, I think there's a chance McCarthy gets a pass because does anybody realize the Cowboys are still in first place? As bad as it seems, the Cowboys are still in first place. As bad as it seems, it's not like the Giants are going to overtake them. It's not like the Washington football team is going to overtake them. And however bad the injuries are for the Cowboys, the Eagles seem to have it worse with the exception of having their starting quarterback, Carson Wentz, who, as we pointed out, played incredible football Sunday, and they still lost. So, look, you can take a lot of pride in dancing on the grave of the Dallas Cowboys. 1, they're not dead. 2, they're actually in first place. And 3, I think they can figure some things out, and they walked into a bit of a buzzsaw with a Cardinal team that I'm going to admit I questioned their defense to start the year. I've never had questions about Kyler Murray. I realized they would score some points. I just didn't know if they could stop anybody and if the defense and offense could coexist based upon what's happened with Cliff going back to when he was the head coach of Texas Tech. And the answer to this point is yes, good enough. We'll see when they get into more divisional play because their division is arguably the toughest in football if the Niners get healthy. But I looked last night, and we have all these panic buttons with the Dallas Cowboys, and we got to realize, bro, I don't care who it is. You lose your quarterback, you're going to stink. You lose your left tackle, your right guard, and your center, and your quarterback, and the likelihood that you can even play NFL football is minimal. Those guys are backups for a reason. And just so you're aware, they're not the only team with all of those injuries. The Chargers have lost most of their offensive line. We pointed out the Eagles have lost most of their offensive line. And then even to get a replacement, do people understand how difficult it is this year? Even if you trade for somebody who's been in the COVID protocol, do you know they have to quarantine for 6 days in a hotel room before they can even show up at your facility to start working out? Yeah, I understand that some of you are going to do this thing to where you're going to go, Gottlieb's a basketball expert, a basketball player, so he doesn't know football because he was a basketball player. Well, okay, that's cool. I don't know it on the level of my friend Jeff Schwartz or Chris Sims is going to join us or Doug Whaley or Robbie Gould. But I know it on the level of a guy who playing professional sports and having connections and talking to people. I've learned things every year that I've been doing this job. And I'm going to tell you right now, this year is eating people alive with these injuries. And it makes good coaches look like bad coaches. Makes bad coaches look like a joke. Makes great coaches look okay. Like, would anybody question the quality of coaching in New England? If I said to you, hey, how good do you think that New England staff is with Josh McDaniels as offensive coordinator and Bill Belichick as head coach? You would say, I think it's pretty damn good, wouldn't you? Did you watch them play Sunday? They look like they hadn't had a practice in a month. And you know what? They've struggled to have practices recently because of COVID. You're not practicing. You didn't have OTAs in preseason. You expanded your roster, but it doesn't matter. Those guys are backups for a reason. You lose your offensive line, you lose your quarterback, everybody. Now, on the other hand, when you start to understand that the players aren't into the coaches, you do start to figure out maybe we made the wrong call. Right? Maybe we made the wrong call. Yes, the owner picked the offensive coordinator, but the offense up until last night hadn't been the problem. The defense had. I've heard Cowherd say start all over. Why would you possibly start all over? You're still in first place. You got plenty of dudes, plenty of weapons. You got to move some pieces around. You're in better shape than everybody else in your division. And not right now because you don't have Dak, but long term you are. So, listen, I understand it's really easy to hit the panic button, and I, too, watch the Cowboys and think, yikes. But what did you expect to see? You know, what did you really expect? When it's not just that they lost their offensive line, that team is built around the offensive line. And when you put that much money in the offensive line, what do you think their backups are going to look like? You got a $10 million tackle. You're not going to have a $10 million or a $5 million tackle behind him. That's not the way it works. You get whatever you can get and you throw it out there and you hope you figure it out. Now, look, quality coaching would be keeping guys together, and you'd see comments like, we're really depleted, but these coaches, they're in it with us, and we're going to figure it out eventually. You don't hear that. And I do think there's a good chance, a better than average chance, that even if he makes the playoffs, Mike McCarthy could be out of a job. Because McCarthy acted like he was some changed guy, studied this, analytics that, went through a year watching film, and it's been the same thing. But if you're ever going to give anybody a pass, losing essentially your entire starting offensive line, when your team is built around your offensive line, then losing your quarterback, who led the league in offense last year and was leading the league in passing this year, I kind of think that's deserving of some sort of a pass for having no offense and having no offense of continuity right now. This is Mike McCarthy after the game last night.
Most importantly, I didn't coach very well. I have a continuing issue with ball security on my football team. Something I personally take a lot of pride in how it reflects how you play the game of football, and I'm not getting that done right now.
I love that. I love that fake. What is it? Fake. When you take things on yourself, it's like being fake humble, right? That's on me. Fake accountability. That's on me. We didn't hold on to the football tonight. I take special pride in that. Like, dude, stop it. We know you're calling out the ball handlers that fumble the football. We get it. Of all the things to be fake accountable for, that one's. It's not that. This is not that hard. We got our butts whooped. We obviously weren't well coached. If we were well coached, this wouldn't have happened. But instead, you go to ball security. Now you're like, all right, you're doing the. I'll take this finger myself, but really I'm pointing at that guy. You point at that guy. You know?